What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Yeahyuh Online, our online youth groups at Journeys Crossing. I'm Scott. I'm the youth pastor at Journeys Crossing. Welcome back to week 2 of our teaching series, Doubt It.
Hey, I doubt it.
Okay.
Doubt It is our new series about the questions that we have and the places that we go to get answers.
Where do fish live?
Ocean.
Yeah?
Yep.
What about monkeys?
The forest.
No. Try again.
Nope.
Yes.
The jungle.
Where do we live?
A dump.
Hey!
This past Sunday, we started this new series at Youth Group, and you can watch any of the JC Youth Onlines for the last 10 weeks on our YouTube page, youtube.com/Journeys Crossing. We'll call them our Corona Youth Groups. And last week, we talked about when and if we doubt. And listen, you don't have to have huge doubts, but if you do, when you do, you're in good company. Last week we said you're not alone in your questions. Some of the guys that were Jesus' best friends in the whole world doubted him. Jesus himself even questioned his Father. Questions don't mean that you don't believe or that you don't care. They actually mean that you do.
What does a train sound like?
Choo-choo.
Yeah, okay, that's accurate. What does a chicken sound like?
Cockle-doodle-doo.
You sure?
Yep.
Cockle-doodle?
Yep.
What do I sound like?
An idiot.
Hey!
All right, so speaking of talking animals, have you guys seen the movie Zootopia yet? All right, it's a classic. It's a Disney. It's been the last 5 years that it came out. If you haven't seen it, I want to fill you in on the story because I want to show you a clip from the movie, okay? And if you've got Disney Plus, you can go watch it after youth group today. It's so good. Okay, so main character of the movie, Judy Hopps, and she's a rabbit. And she's the first rabbit ever to join the police force in Zootopia. Now, it's not an easy job, but Judy is crazy committed to solving this mysterious case that she's working on. And it's where formerly intelligent animals, all the animals in Zootopia are intelligent, they seem to be turning savage.
So you bagged him.
No, not that kind of stuff. No, stop. Okay, watch what happens when Judy catches a big break in the case. Okay, so here's what's going on in this scene. So our hero, Judy, has found an enormous clue in this case, but she can't convince her boss because the evidence has gone missing. And if you've seen the movie, you know that we're meant to side with Judy because as the audience, we've seen the same evidence she's seen. But Bogo hasn't. Chief Bogo hasn't seen any of it. So he doesn't believe. And I get that because evidence is important if you're going to make a decision like that. So this whole series, I want us to get in the habit of dealing with questions and getting answers from ourselves, asking ourselves questions and getting answers. So like we did last week, we're gonna take a few minutes, ask some questions and get some answers. So go get a pen and a piece of paper to write on. A song is gonna play and you're gonna write down your answers to the following 4 questions. And then when the song's over, we'll get back together, okay? All right, cool. All right, so here are your questions. Question number 1. What's one situation where you would want to see evidence before you made a decision or a judgment about something? Okay? Question number 2. What's one situation where you'd be willing to believe something without seeing all the evidence? And question number 3. Should we ask God for evidence before we decide to believe or obey him? Why or why not? All right, so answer those questions now. You've got the next song in order to do that. Go.
When you make big plays, you get rings. Or I just can't wait. Living these raps, yeah. Giving them facts, yeah. What would I care? Hey, yeah. Giving them facts, yeah. What would I check, yeah. Just call my name, I'll be right there. Sleeping on the wave, fantasy nightmare. Voices in my head telling me fight fair. Jackie Chan with the Bruce Lee. Shining in your city, I'm a street light, yeah. We the ones that they wanna be like, yeah. Voices in my head telling me fight fair. Jackie Chan with the Bruce Lee. Stack it up, give it a ring. take a little trip and come back. I been on fighting these demons, feel like we been in Iraq. Cause I remember the season, we was all under attack. Even just look at the reason, maybe you'll learn to relax.
Let me talk.
I wanna rock the night, living a life of life. Had to make sacrifice, and I'm in your city lights. Thinking it must be nice. Had to go reunite. Just call my name, I'll be right there. Sleeping on the wave, under sea nightmare. Voices in my head telling me fight fair. Jackie Chan with the Bruce Lee. Shining in your city, I'm a street light, yeah. We the ones that they wanna be like, yeah. Voices in my head telling me fight fair. Jackie Chan with the Bruce Lee. When you make big plays, you get rings. Or I just can't wait.
Yeah, turn it up, let me get crack. Take it up more to the max. I take a break now, withdraw. Spaz on the track and relapse. I feel like I could do anything. I'ma go hard till I'm flat, yeah. Never would've made it. I've been through the hell and back, yeah. Devil in a new dress. I'm in a bulletproof vest. I can't fear nothing, look. God with me, I'm ruthless. Don't need stamps, I'm established. You just threw the lob. When it's dropped, it's a classic. Just call my name, I'll be right there. Sleeping on the wave, undersea nightmare. My DeLorean, high speed, like, yeah. Back to the future, like, brr. Top of the morning to your dish, that after school and tutor. You ain't attended Ferris Bueller, 30 degrees, I freeze a cooler. Half of these rappers lying, do the Superman. I got lanes to save. Just for my brothers, I paid away. I made a play and I changed the game. Holy.
Who invented the light bulb?
Edison?
You sound unsure.
Yep, I'm sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
He was smart.
Super smart.
Yeah? Who is the smartest person you know?
It's not you.
Hey!
Nice. Okay, so in nearly every area of our lives, asking questions, investigating, fact-checking the things that people say is the move, right? People celebrate when you do that. But when it comes to our trust in and our relationship with God, sometimes when we ask for evidence or we investigate, we do this very same question asking or fact-checking, religious people tend to look down upon you. Sometimes they shame you. And again, that's never going to happen to you as a part of our youth groups, but I know in some pockets of church life it happens. People talk about trust in God as if trust means blind trust. But I disagree with that. I'm not in for that. Having trust in God doesn't mean that we can't also have evidence that supports what we believe. And today we're going to continue that conversation about doubts and questions. So last week our big idea was you're not alone in your questions. Lots of people have questioned God before, and you're in good company when you do. But this week we're going to talk more about our questions and specifically how God responds when people ask for the evidence they need when they're choosing to believe or not. And there's no greater story in the Bible that I can think of a guy who tries to do that with God than this guy Gideon in the Old Testament. I want to introduce you to this dude Gideon, okay? In the Bible, Old Testament, the book of Judges. Now, at the time of this story, Gideon's people, the people of God, the Israelites, were suffering under the oppression of a nation called Midian. And the Israelites were frustrated and afraid and desperate. I mean, imagine how you'd feel if another country came in and invaded your country, the insecurity, the fear that would be wanting to take over your life. Well, as many people do when they're in trouble, God's people cried out to God for help, and in response, God sent an angel to this dude Gideon to tell him that God was still with Israel. God was still on their team, or really, he was allowing them to still be on his team. And he had a job for Gideon. The job was to get God's people out from under the power of the Midianites, to lead them against the Midianites. Now, Gideon was cool with that, except he had some questions, okay? So, in the book of Judges, the 6th chapter, in verses 12 through 14, listen to what Gideon asks and to God's response. Verse 12. When the angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon, he said, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." "Pardon me, my lord," Gideon replied, "but if the Lord is with us, why has all this happened to us? Where are all his wonders that our ancestors told us about when they said, 'Did not the Lord bring us up out of Egypt?' But now the Lord has abandoned us and given us into the hand of Midian. The Lord turned to him and said, "Go in the strength you have and save Israel out of Midian's hand. Am I not sending you?" All right, so God just talked to Gideon through an angel and told him what's up. Like, that would have probably been enough for a lot of us. But in verses 15 and 16, Gideon has some more questions. Here's what it says there. "Pardon me, my lord," Gideon replied, "but how can I save Israel? My clan is the weakest in Manasseh." Manasseh was one of the tribes of Israel. "And I am the least in my family." The Lord answered, "I will be with you, and you will strike down all the Midianites, leaving none alive." Cool, God, we're good. Okay, we're good. But wait, Gideon's got more questions. In verses 17 and 21, here's what he asks. Gideon replied, "If now I have found favor in your eyes, give me a sign that it is really you talking to me." And then in verse 21, it says this. "Then the angel of the Lord touched the meat that he was eating and the unleavened bread with the tip of the staff that was in his hand. Fire flared from the rock, consuming the meat and the bread, and the angel of the Lord disappeared." Done. We're good. I get it. That's awesome. You did a miracle. We are straight. We're really, really good. I'm all in. No, wait. More questions. In verses 36 and 38, 36 through 38, here's what Gideon asks. Gideon said to God, "If you will save Israel by my hand, as you have promised, look, I will place a wool fleece on the threshing floor. If there is dew only on the fleece and all the ground is dry, then I will know that you will save Israel by my hand, as you have said." And that is what happened. Gideon rose early the next day. He squeezed the fleece and wrung out the dew, a bowl full of water. All right, that's it. I am all in. I don't need to see anything else. Maybe I do. One more time. Verses 39 through 40, here's what Gideon asks. Then Gideon says to God, "Do not be angry with me. Let me make just one more request. Allow me one more test with the fleece. But this time, make the fleece dry and the ground be covered with dew." And that night, God did so. Only the fleece was dry. All the ground was covered with dew. 5 times in this story, Gideon questions. And not only does he get direct answers from God, he gets miracles from God. He asks God 5 times before he's convinced. And if you've ever been told that if you had trust and you wouldn't need to ask God for proof of anything, or that asking God for answers is a proof that you're lacking trust in God, then this story might be shocking to you. You know, if you've ever been told that it's wrong or shameful to question God, this might be kind of a blow your system. You might see Gideon's behavior as embarrassing or less than or shameful. But if you were here last week, you heard us say that it is natural to ask questions, normal, good even. And when our questions are directed towards God, like in Gideon's case, God doesn't get angry. In fact, he seems pretty patient, like he's pretty understanding about the whole thing. So let's ask some more questions. Get that pen and paper out. A song's going to play. You're going to write down the answers to these questions. And when the song is done, we'll come back together, okay? So here are your 3 questions that you're going to think about right now. Ready? Okay. Question number 1 is this. Do you agree with or relate to Gideon and his interactions with God? Why or why not? Do you agree with or relate to Gideon and his interactions with God? Why or why not? Second question is this. What are some examples of times that we might ask God to give us evidence today? And then the third question is this. What might it mean if we ask God for evidence but don't receive it in the way that we were asking for or expecting? All right, you've got a whole song. Answer those questions and we'll see you in a minute.
I can feel when my mind starts to creep into doubt. On the days when the strength in my heart's giving out, there's a light, but it hides from me deep in the cloud. There's a voice that I need, but I don't hear a sound. Ever running to what I can't see, fighting out of all my unbelief. Father, even in my song will be, I know you will always carry me. It's inevitable. Set your promise to play on repeat in my head. When you meet my anxiety, put it to death. Ever running to what I can't see, fighting out of all my unbelief. Father, even in my song will be, I know you will always carry me. It's inevitable. It's inevitable. It's inevitable. It's inevitable.
All right, so now that we've talked about Gideon, I want to take a look at another guy who is probably the most famous guy in the Bible when it comes to doubting God, or at least having the reputation for doubting God. He even earns the nickname Doubting Thomas. Maybe you've heard of Thomas. I want to see if God is as understanding to Thomas as he was to Gideon. So this is in the New Testament, the Gospel of John, the 20th chapter, the 24th verse. Here's what it says. Now Thomas, also known as Didymus, one of the 12, was not with the disciples when Jesus came. So the other disciples told him, "We have seen the Lord." But he said to them, "Unless I see the nail marks in his hands, and put my finger where the nails were, and put my hand into his side, I will not believe." A week later, his disciples were in the house again, and Thomas was with them. Though the doors were locked, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." And then he said to Thomas, "Put your finger here. See my hands. Reach out your hand and put it into my side. Stop doubting and believe." Thomas said to him, "My Lord and my God." Then Jesus told him, "Because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed." All right, so here's what's happening. Jesus had just been crucified. The disciples were devastated, right? Wouldn't you be? Imagine, these people thought Jesus had come to save them from the Romans and save them, like be the Messiah that they'd always dreamed of, and then he died. And his followers were probably in a state of mourning. Like, well, no, there's no probably about that. They were mourning, they were afraid, they were probably a little bit ashamed to think that they'd been wrong about everything, that they'd made such a big deal about this, left their homes to follow Jesus, and now he was dead. But now, days after his death, this story starts to spread. People are claiming to have seen Jesus, and that was pretty exciting, but kind of weird. And then Jesus shows up to all of his disciples except for this dude Thomas. And when the other disciples tell Thomas that Jesus is back from the dead, he was skeptical. I'd be skeptical too, because dead people stay dead. They don't come back to life. The news was so unbelievable that Thomas says, He's only going to believe if he can put his finger through the wounds in Jesus' flesh, which is pretty gross, but I get it, Thomas. I'm with you. But then look what happens. Jesus shows up. And did Jesus get all mad at Thomas for not having more trust? No. Did Jesus punish Thomas for not believing the news immediately? No. Did he shame Thomas for questions or doubts? No. In fact, Jesus did what Thomas asked. He said, okay, take a look at the scars. You want to see them? Here they are. And he let Thomas touch them. How do you think you would have reacted if you were Thomas? What would you have done? And maybe now you feel like Thomas. Maybe you're like, I can't believe unless I see it. Even though other people are totally convinced that Jesus is and lives and is with us. Here's the thing. People think that God thinks you're gross if you have questions about him, that he treats you like you're nasty, like you're gross.
Don't make no sense.
Yeah. Oh! What you doing with that? Yeah.
That was nasty. All right, so here's the thing about Thomas. Thomas wasn't the only disciple who needed evidence to believe in Jesus' resurrection. He's just the only one that wasn't in the room when Jesus showed up the first time he did after his resurrection had happened. So Thomas hadn't seen the evidence yet, and once he did, he believed. The book of John that this story of Thomas is recorded in was written 50 years after Jesus had ascended to heaven to a bunch of Jesus followers who had never seen Jesus in the flesh. So they needed reassurance that Jesus really did rise again. And it must have been crazy comforting to know that Thomas, one of Jesus' best friends, was asking the same kinds of questions that they were asking 50 years after the fact. Jesus' words to Thomas must have really resonated too with these people, because he told Thomas, look, Thomas, you get to see me in the flesh, but there are future followers coming that aren't going to have that privilege. And they're going to have to base their trust in me on other kinds of evidence, and they will be blessed for it. So then the story of Thomas, while so many people used to see it as an embarrassment, actually goes from embarrassment to super helpful. Because through this little interaction with Jesus, we see that Jesus understands that we are coming. People who are going to need proof and eyewitness accounts that he did, in fact, rise from the dead. These two stories, Gideon and Thomas, they're not so dissimilar, even though they're in the Old and the New Testament, because they prove to us one thing. Here's what we learned from these two stories, and it's actually today's big idea. It's this, that God doesn't shame us for our questions. Instead, he's patient with us, and he gives us the evidence that we need to believe. All right, have you ever taken a personality test? If you have, you know that we all function a bit differently when it comes to our personalities. Personality tests tell us about the ways that we're different and unique from each other. So some of us are introverts. We like being to ourselves. And some of us are extroverts. We like being out there with people. Some of us like to take charge, and other people like to follow along. Neither one is bad. They're both great. That's just who we are. Some of us are really relaxed and laid back, and some of us are like all the time, easily excited. Some of us are driven by feelings and our intuition about a thing. And others of us are more logical and reasonable, and we like to think things through. None of these traits are better or worse than any other. They're just different ways of being human beings. But it's important that we understand that we are wired differently, because our personalities can impact the way that we know and experience God. Could make it easier to trust or not trust him. If you're more feelings oriented, you might most likely experience God through emotions and intuition, and that's awesome. But if you're more logic oriented, you probably experience God through thoughts and reasons, and you love facts about God, things that are evidence to you, and all of that's great too. And if I had to guess, probably Gideon and Thomas were both pretty logical people. They needed evidence in order to believe, and God was cool with that. So cool. In fact, being skeptical is not a character flaw or a lack of trust. When Gideon and Thomas struggled to believe, They asked God for help, for evidence, and God gave it. And he never treated them like they were gross. So as we close up today's JC Youth Online, I want to ask, what about you? What about us? Like, what if we still need evidence in order to believe today? What kind of evidence does God give? Well, let's talk about that and think about it. Okay, so the last time, get the pen and paper out, answer these 3 questions. Ready? Here they are. 1, when it comes to God, do you think you're more feelings-oriented, more logic-oriented, maybe a little bit of both? And why do you say that? Question number 2, what kind of evidence do we have today that would help us believe in the existence of God? And then question number 3, what do you personally, really need to believe in the story of Jesus? And do you really believe in the story of Jesus? Take some time, answer those questions as this next song plays.
Jesus, I need you, lover, don't leave. Did you call my name just to plunge me deep into the darkness? Do you know that I can't even hear your voice? Accusers around me on every side, whispering to me that I'm willfully blind, that I'm clinging to nothing, but all that I want is to clear the noise. So I reach out my hands to find you where you have been hiding. Maybe I'll see deep in the eyes of the dying. Oh, you know I'm not asking
Hey, I don't know about you, what you need to kind of believe in God, what the evidence is that most resonates with you. But for me, I love to just go outside and see the beauty of God in his creation. I love seeing trees and green and lush and blue skies and clouds and all of the beauty of his creation. And yes, there's evidence all over the place in mathematics, in all the sciences, in history. There's all kinds of things that are evidence for God. But even with all of that, when we don't believe, when we struggle to believe, God doesn't get angry with us, but he gives us the evidence that we need to trust him. So as we close up today, I want us to just stop and spend a few moments asking him for help to believe and thanking him for the room to doubt. So let's pray together real quick. God, thanks for today, and thank you so much for your patience with us, your kindness with us, your gentleness with us, that you don't beat us up for doubting, but you've actually kind of planted that in us. You've given us curiosity, and you help us to not believe blindly. You give us the evidence that we need to know you. And I'd ask that you'd help us to continue learning more about that evidence and to continue learning more about you, who you are, and how much you love us. Thank you, Father, for the evidence that you've given us, and help us to learn even more. We pray all that in your name. Amen. Hey, everybody, thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us today at JC Youth Online. If you've got a friend who wants to check us out, but wasn't awake today at 11:15 a.m. and probably won't roll out of bed until 2, we are going to do a live replay of today's JC Youth Online at 5 o'clock on our Facebook page, your Youth Ministry Facebook page, Journeys Crossing YM. You can see that on the slide here. Have them check us out there. We'd love to hang out with them. It's a live replay. We'll be online chatting with them, so that'll be cool. You can pause this video right now and get all of our contact information right here. You can call, email, text, you know what's up. You can check out our website, ilovethischurch.com/youth. There's also our e-news that comes out every Sunday morning at 7 a.m. On social media, you can find us on Insta, Twitter, Facebook. That's updated regularly, so check all that out. If you want to stay connected daily, you can check us out on Instagram at noon for our daily prayer time. Very short, a minute or less. I lead us in prayer and pray along with us. Come show up. We would love to pray with you. This week, Wednesday, May 27th, we've got midweek groups online, Zoom chats, 7 p.m. You know the drill, 7 p.m. on Zoom. Check out the description below for the link. Tonight, we don't have debriefing groups, but for you youth workers out there, we are having a youth workers meeting, summit meeting at 7 p.m. on Zoom. Link is in the description below. Check that out. Join us there today. And in 2 Sundays on June 7th, it's time, seniors. We are going to be celebrating our seniors as a part of JC Youth Online. So if you're a senior, I need one baby picture of you and one senior picture of you. A baby picture and a senior picture of you. And for you to come be a part of JC Youth Online on the 7th of June for some really cool stuff. And between now and then, we've got some stuff planned for you. So just be on the lookout, seniors. Can't believe it's that time of year. Wow. Crazy. We love you guys. And we're so sorry for how this has all gone down with school and all that craziness. Okay. Here we go. Tonight, won't see you, but if you want to join us at 5 for the replay of this video, you can. And youth workers will see you at 7 tonight on Zoom. We started playing video games on Discord this past week, so maybe look out for some pop-up games this week that are happening, and we'll let you know via Instagram and Facebook when we're playing. All right, thanks for coming and hanging out today on JC or at JC Youth Online. We will see you this week. All right, we miss you guys. We love you. We're out. Peace. Bye.